and welcome to Under Oath with Michelle Bell. I'm your host, Michelle Bell. Now, I am a licensed attorney, and in this show, I actually bring on my fellow colleagues, and we give you, the public, the information that you need to know. So I like to start the show off with a segment I call Jury Duty, and that's where I ask a trivia question, and the first person to send in the correct answer will have their name put on the website. So are you ready? Okay. The United States Constitution replaced what other document on March 4th, 1789? All right, so all you history buffs, I need you to send in the answer. Now, we have an awesome guest coming on today, and you small businesses, you're finally getting the information that you've been waiting for. Now, you can go to our website, which is www.mbunderoath.com, and you can see our past shows, submit questions for jury duty, plead the fifth, and office hours. Plus, subscribe to all our social media places. What is it? Instagram, Facebook, I don't know, all of them. We're there. Just look for Under Oath with Michelle Bell. Okay? We'll be back.
I'll be right back.
Hi. You think you're probably sober?
Yeah.
But you're thinking about taking the back roads home, just in case. If you're probably sober, then why would you do that? Good choice.
Probably okay isn't okay. If you see a warning sign, stop and call a cab, a car, or a friend.
That's a full glass of wine. I'll be chatting you later.
Welcome back to Under Oath with Michelle Bell. I'm your host, Michelle Bell. So I'm here with our special guest today, Ms. Kimberly G., and she is the founder of Kimberly G. Legal, right?
That's right.
So you practice employment law, HR consulting for small businesses, legal research and writing for attorneys, and you do other outsourcing projects or things for attorneys, right?
That's correct.
Oh, that is awesome. So welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, of course, of course. So what topic are you going to talk today?
So because I do HR consulting and provide employment law guidance for small business owners, I thought a good topic would be what you need to know when hiring employees, whether you're hiring your first employee or you're about to hire more employees. I think sometimes small business owners don't know all of the things that they need to do to be compliant. So that's what we're going to talk about today.
You know, that's a great topic because I do employment law as well, but a lot of the small businesses that I deal with, that's their biggest issue is they did not do what they were supposed to do in the very beginning before they started hiring employees, and then things just go south.
Yes, so if you can get ahead of problems before they arise, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. You know, you want to come see me before, not after. I just read something online and it was great. It was by another attorney. She said you want to save a few dollars, but you're going to end up costing yourself more if you don't do things the right way in the beginning. So we try to give the preventative counseling that people need.
Oh, definitely, because I don't think people understand that one employee can be the cause of your whole business.
Lots of problems.
Right, or you're not even having a business anymore, because
Yes.
I had one that unfortunately the business had to shut down because of things that the former employee did. Mm-hmm. And they just couldn't recover from it. So it's unfortunate, but that stuff happens.
Absolutely.
So, all right, good. So how you want to start and tell the public about what they should know when they're hiring their employees?
Well, so one misconception that I think a lot of small business owners have is they think that the employment laws are triggered when the employee starts working for them, right? But they are triggered so far in advance. Mm-hmm. You are required to abide by certain employment laws, even when you're screening for candidates, even when you're interviewing candidates. An applicant for a job that you may not hire them, you may not extend an offer, they still may be able to have a complaint against you if you didn't follow certain laws. So one thing you want to be careful about when you're interviewing or even when you're writing a job announcement, mm-hmm. you hear a lot about implicit bias, right? That's mm-hmm. kind of a big thing that's trending now that people are talking about. But you want to be careful not only about implicit bias, and they have HR tools out there that can help you with that. You can run job announcements through a tool and it'll mm-hmm. take out gender bias words or certain jargon that really might be leading you into a dangerous area.
Right.
And they also have something now called blind recruiting, where you get resumes and you have whoever your person is that's fielding those resumes, they will take out the name of the person, or maybe where they went to school, or things that might be identifying factors about who they are, things that you don't really need to know more than what their merit is and what they can bring to the position. So be careful about that. And also when you're interviewing, you also want to be careful about the questions that you ask. And it might seem very, obvious that you don't ask, what race are you?
Right.
Or how old are you? But for some people, it's not obvious. And also, depending on the jurisdiction where you live, you might be required to abide by certain laws that you don't even know about. So if you are a business owner and you are in Washington, D.C., you are covered by the D.C. Human Rights Act, which covers 20 protected traits, which is more than what's covered under the federal anti-discrimination statute. And it covers traits like marital status, or family caregiving responsibilities, parenting responsibilities,
Right.
or political affiliation, or I'm just giving you some examples, or matriculation. So you can't discriminate against someone because of their status as a student. So you have to be really careful about, even if you're having small talk, about the questions that you have, the questions that you ask, even something that might seem benign, such as, talking about the person's children, or how much work they have, or, where they went to school. You have to be careful because it can kind of lead you into a potentially dangerous area. So that's one area where I advise people to be careful. And the other is the ways that you use social media to actually recruit candidates. This is a big
It is.
issue. People would be surprised, but we're in a digital age. Everybody has a digital footprint, and a lot of employers will look at a resume and they'll go online and they'll search for a candidate.
Right.
And they might come across a public profile, like let's say a Facebook profile, right? And they go in that person's profile, and perhaps you are learning information about them that you didn't otherwise have.
Right.
Maybe now you're learning what their ethnicity is, or what their political leanings are, or maybe what their religious views are. And somebody might say, well, why is that a problem? It's a problem for a couple of reasons, because number one, it could be triggering your implicit bias. You might be prone to hire them or not hire them based on something that you've learned. And the other thing is that even if your implicit bias is not triggered, that the person might know that you've learned of certain information from their profile and use that as a basis for a complaint against you. So there was actually a case a couple of years ago, about 3 years ago. Someone interviewed for a job. An employee that was already with the company went and found the applicant's Facebook profile. She sent that profile to the hiring committee. There was a lot of information on that profile about the person's religious views, and the company did not extend an offer, and the prospective employee, the applicant, ended up suing that company, and she won because she was able to provide a prima facie case that that decision was based on her religious views, information that they had learned by viewing her profile. So it's great to be informed, but sometimes ignorance is bliss. You don't need to know everything about everyone. You just need to know what makes them qualified for this position. So be careful about the way that you use online tools to vet your candidates, because it can be tricky and can kind of get you into trouble.
So that's a good way to look at things, because a lot of people are hearing about it from the applicant side of it, where don't post this on Facebook because your employer can see it or potential employers can see it. Don't have those racy pictures, don't have, certain sayings, or repost or share what, something else that someone has that they feel is inappropriate. Just be careful of what you're doing, like your little partying last night. Don't put that on there.
Yes.
But you hear about that from the applicant side of things. So it's good to hear about, okay, what the employer can't do with that social media presence. Because you do hear a lot about what the employee or potential employee can't put on social media that can hinder them from getting the job. But now employers what you shouldn't do, even though you're looking on social media, what you shouldn't do with that information.
Right, and also, I mean, depending on the jurisdiction where you live, Maryland is one of these jurisdictions, and I think this is exceptionally intrusive, but employers do it. They will ask for access information to an employee or a prospective employee's online profile, social media profiles, such as their password and their username. And there was actually a bill that passed in Maryland that stated that employers are prohibited from doing that. So you have to be careful.
I can see that.
Yeah, you have to be careful about what you're asking for and the spaces you're going into and the information you're trying to extract.
Well, it's kind of weird in a way because you won't let the employer ask for the password and stuff to get in and see the social media, but yet they want your social security number so they can run your credit history to see, okay, does this person pay bills? Does this person, so it's like, okay, well, which one's more intrusive? Because now you're looking at my entire credit history, what I've applied for, what I've gotten, how much I owe, my debt, all that stuff, but yet it's not okay for you to look at pictures of the baby and the hubby and what I want to put on there. So it's kind of weird.
But you know what? I'm actually glad you mentioned that because there are actually laws in place about when you can pull somebody's credit and when you can screen them for criminal background, prior convictions or perhaps pending convictions. So even though you're allowed to do those things, there are restrictions in place for you to do that too. So when you're interviewing an employee, they're called ban the box laws, and they have them in many jurisdictions and countries across the United States, and Washington, D.C. and Maryland, where I'm licensed to practice, they have them as well. So you can still, if you find it necessary and it's a legitimate business need, you can still run a criminal background check on someone or a credit check, but you can't rely on that information prior to a conditional offer being extended. And then if you do find out that there was perhaps a prior conviction or a pending conviction, you have to have a legitimate business need for declining to offer employment to that applicant. And there are record keeping requirements that go along with it as well. So if the applicant finds out that, or has thinks perhaps that maybe you didn't hire him, or her because of a prior conviction or a pending conviction, they can request that hiring record or those personnel records, the hiring file, and you have to keep certain records. And if they find that you did not comply, they can file a complaint with the DC Office of Human Rights, and you can be cited for failing to, I believe it's called the DC Criminal Screening Records Amendment Act or something like that. It passed a few years ago. So they can ask for your credit report, they can ask for criminal history, but there are certain guidelines that they have to follow in that regard as well. It's just not an absolute right.
Okay, good. So at this point, we are going to take a quick break. We're going to come back with office hours. So there were questions that were sent in, and hope you answer them to the best of your ability. And I do want to go into more of like what ban the box is, because I know some people know about that term and others don't, and it's really important because it can, it can hurt you. So let me know.
Okay.
We'll be right back. Thanks.
145 over 92.
180 over 111. I had a heart attack, a cardiac arrest, and then a stroke.
This is what high blood pressure looks like. You might not feel its symptoms, but the results from a heart attack or stroke are far from invisible or silent. Get back on your plan or talk with your doctor to create an exercise, diet, and medication plan that works for you. Go to loweryourhbp.org.
If I would have followed a treatment plan, I would not be in this situation.
Welcome back to Under Oath with Michelle Bell. I'm your host, Michelle Bell. And I'm still here with our awesome guest, Ms. Kimberly G., who is the founder of Kimberly G. Legal, right?
Yes, that's correct.
And she practices employment law, HR consultant for small businesses, and you do legal and research writing and outsourcing for attorneys, right?
That's correct, yes.
So that's awesome. You have to come back and talk about that as well.
I would love to.
Yeah, attorneys need help too.
Yes, they do.
So we're going to go into the next segment, which is called Office Hours.
Okay.
And that's where we have the audience, they've sent in questions
Okay,
for employment, and you answer them to the best of your ability.
I'll do my best.
Of course. So the first one is going to be an audio question. It's not a video. And then the others were emailed to me. So I'll read them off to you.
Okay.
Okay? You ready? So here's going to be the first question.
I have a legal question. What do you do if you're at your place of employment and your supervisor says to you, you know, at first they're making a joke, and then after you guys, everybody's laugh, and then they turn to you and go, I'm gonna shoot you, but in a good way, and they laugh and they go in their office, but you don't laugh. That's not appropriate, in my opinion, but legally, I just wanted to just ask that question and see. Also, I failed to mention that your supervisor is white, and you're African American, and your other coworker was white. So, I don't know. Not trying to say it's a race thing, but just asking.
Okay.
Okay, so that's an interesting question. I have a smile on my face, but workplace violence is actually a very serious issue.
It is.
It's increasing every day. There's actually a lot of talk now about whether people should be able to be armed at work and bring guns into the workplace. So this is actually a timely question. And believe it or not, there's not actually a federal law that imposes a duty upon employers to protect employees from workplace violence. That doesn't mean that your employer doesn't have a policy in place already. They may have a workplace violence policy, or they may have a workplace violence prevention program. And so my first suggestion to her would be to look at the company's policies, see what their complaint process is, what their reporting procedures are. Even if there isn't a policy in place, she needs to report it to someone higher than the person who made the threat, right? And if that doesn't work and she needs to go outside of her company, the Department of Labor does actually oversee occupational safety issues, and they have something called a general duty clause in the Occupational Safety and Health Act. And pretty much it's exactly as it sounds. Employers have a duty to make sure that their employees are safe, they're not facing any severe hazards, and that, you know, they're making sure that they're not facing any harm or possible injury. And if it's found that they're putting their employees at risk, the Department of Labor could actually issue a citation. And there's also some cases, there aren't a whole lot of them, but people are actually bringing tort claims against their employers, negligent hiring claims stating that you knew this person was a risk, you didn't conduct a proper background check, and, you know, I was injured as a result, or I faced harm as a result. And some of those cases have been successful also. So, and as far as the second part of her question, which was whether a threat of workplace violence could be discrimination. I mean, I hate to give the lawyerly answer and say it depends, but it really depends, right? So whether that's considered a hostile work environment or whether it's considered discrimination, she would have to show that it was done on the basis of her race or some other protected class, and that the employer didn't have a legitimate non-discriminatory reason for doing so.
Okay. Well, you know what? I think you answered it really the best that you could with the information that was given. So, you know, just to recap for the person who sent it in and they're hopefully listening, is that, you know, hey, check your employer's policy or manual on the, the workplace
violence policy, or workplace violence prevention program, or the Department of Labor, or even check the laws in the state or the city where you live. There might be laws that go above and beyond what the federal statute provides, which is very little. Like I said, there's no federal law that's in place for workplace violence, unfortunately.
Okay. Well, the person, if you had more questions, I mean, we'll give you Ms. G's information at the end of the show. You may be able to email her, and, you know, just to make sure that you understand what's going on. But thank you for sending it in. Now, the other questions were emailed. You ready for it?
I'm ready.
I know I got you in the hot seat, right? So the next question is, are there any rules or laws of which I should be mindful before I hire my first employee or during the pre-screening process? Now, I know we covered a little bit of that.
Yeah, so one mistake that I think a lot of small business owners make, they think if they only have 1 or 2 employees or 3 or 4 employees that the laws don't apply to them. And that might be the case, you know, as far as the federal laws are concerned. So for instance, Title VII of the Civil Rights Act, the threshold for most of the discrimination laws are to have 15 employees. But if you have just 1 employee, you are covered under the Equal Pay Act, and you have to provide equal pay. And again, it always goes back to the location where your business is. So in the District of Columbia, if you're covered under the DC Human Rights Act, you are covered under that act if you have just one employee. So you have to be still mindful about making sure that you're implementing anti-harassment and anti-discrimination policies in the right way. And the same goes with labor laws, right? So even if you have a non-unionized staff, you still have to follow the regulations and the rules under the National Labor Relations Act. The NLRB still can have oversight over your policies and what you're doing and whether you're actually implementing policies that are in accordance with Section 7 of the National Labor Relations Act. And Section 7 basically protects employees to engage in concerted activity. And all that is the right to join a union, the right to bargain over wages, conditions of employment, benefits, things like that.
Well, you know what? That's good to know, because I really believe that all the information that you're given, even answering in these questions and what we discussed in the prior segment, will help out these small businesses, because a lot of people don't realize that you need to do all of this. Absolutely. Whether you are a solo or you're just starting out and you're going to bring in, you think that, oh, okay, well, I'm just going to bring in my niece to help me out and I'll pay her however I pay her. You still have to follow the rules because they still apply to you.
Absolutely.
And I don't think people get that. It's not easy being a business owner.
No.
But you don't want it to, I don't want to say fail, but you don't want it to, if you're going to be, if your business is going to take a hit, let it be from you.
Absolutely.
Not from an employee or from a mistake that could have been corrected that has now snowballed into something where you now don't have your business anymore, or it's in shambles and you can't repair it.
Yes.
Because, you put a lot of time and effort into the business.
Yeah, you have enough on your plate just running your business, so you don't want a legal headache. So make sure you're consulting with the right people, an employment law attorney. People don't want to spend the money, but you're going to spend more money, time, effort, resources on the back end if you don't take care of what you need to on the front end.
In other words, yeah. So pay the attorney now, because preventive fees are a lot cheaper than defending you in court. It really is. I can tell you personal experience. So find a way to actually get that consultation and bring the attorney on to handle and make sure everything is set the way it's supposed to be set, because you are going to pay a pretty penny if you end up in court, because it's not cheap.
No, it's not.
It's not, and we can't estimate how long it's going to be, how much it's going to take, so that adds on.
Absolutely.
And I believe that's going to be it for office hours.
Okay.
And thank you for answering those questions.
No problem. Thank you.
Now, we're going to go back to what we talked about, and I believe we left off and ban the box. What is ban the box for those that don't know?
So Ban the Box was really, it's an initiative that's been around for quite some time, but it's really grown and spread, and I don't have an exact number, but the majority of jurisdictions in the United States, either the state or particular cities, have ban the box legislation. And essentially, we have ex-offenders, people who have committed crimes that are trying to re-enter society, and a lot of studies have shown that, barriers to entering the workforce are largely based in the fact that they have a prior record, and that one of the things to help with recidivism is to make sure that people are working and that they have a livelihood. So laws have been developed across the country, and they're mostly called ban the box laws, where on an application, the box which asks, and I remember this on applications when I was growing up, and I'm sure you did too.
Yes.
Please list if you have a prior conviction and what your conviction is and how long ago it was. And so ban the box is essentially saying you can still do a criminal check, but you can't just automatically throw somebody away because they have a prior record. You have to allow them to apply for the position, and once you've decided that a conditional offer is going to be granted to that person, then you can take that into consideration. And if you have a legitimate business need why you can't hire this person, then it's okay to, decline extending an offer. And the laws are not exactly the same in every jurisdiction.
Right.
So some say you can't ask about it at all, and some
Right.
say you can't ask for it extending back a certain number of years. So you want to make sure that you, again, are consulting with an employment law attorney so that they can make sure that you're doing what you need to do, keeping the proper records and following the law that you need to. But overall, I mean, I think ban the box, I don't want to get political, but I think ban the box laws are good. I think, you know, it still allows the employer to run their business the way they need to run their business, but it also gives ex-offenders a chance to, you know, it takes now one barrier for them to re-enter the workforce.
I mean, I totally understand. I mean, sometimes people actually just need that break. And, you know, you don't know why they were in the situation they were in. They got them locked up. It may not have been them per se. They could have been with someone because, you know, we've had attorneys on the show give examples of just a person riding in a car with someone else and everybody being picked up and charged.
Yeah.
You know, now you have that on your record. So you not being able to have a job because you were a passenger in the car. You know, ban the box kind of assists with that. But then I also understand the other side of it. If you're a daycare provider, you need to know if the person who's applying to work in the daycare is a sex offender that had a history of the children being the
Absolutely.
victim.
Absolutely.
You know, so I see both sides of it.
Yes.
So definitely employers check your state or your jurisdiction's law on ban the box.
Absolutely.
So that you kind of know what it is that you can and can't do when you're asking the question. So, okay, cool. Now, that was awesome. I know, it's over. It went by quick, didn't it?
We're done?
No, we're not done, but this segment is ending.
Oh, that was quick.
It was, but I mean, it's great information that went out to the public. So when we take this break, we're going to come back and we're going to do one of the favorite segments, which is Plead the Fifth. I'm going to ask you some random questions. You answer them to the best of your ability or plead the fifth.
Okay.
Okay? And then we'll come back with cheat sheet as well, where you're just going to give the audience 3 quick tips.
Okay.
All right?
All right.
Okay, don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
So we were walking to school. I started thinking about lunch. Mom packed me turkey and cheese.
She's
I really want
smart.
cheese pizza.
Sometimes her mind wanders.
We should have a sleepover.
I remember saying, Laura?
I think I heard Mom say something.
The sign says don't walk.
Sometimes it's so overwhelming.
I really hope she doesn't
I
have
really
another
hope I
bad
don't
day
have
at
another
school
bad day
today.
at school today.
When you can see learning and attention issues from their side, you can be on their side. Go to understood.org, a free online resource with support and tools to help your child thrive.
Welcome back to Under Oath with Michelle Bell. I'm your host, Michelle Bell. And I'm here with Miss Kimberly G. Legal. Kimberly G., founder of Kimberly G. Legal. See, look, I make mistakes too. So
It's okay.
we're going to go into the segment, which is Plead the Fifth. And that's
Okay.
where I'm just going to ask you random questions. You can either answer it or plead the fifth. And then
Okay.
we'll go straight into cheat sheet, where you're going to give the public 3 quick tips.
Okay.
Okay?
All
You
right.
ready?
I'm ready.
All right. First one. Have you ever lied to get a job?
I plead the fifth.
Already? Have you ever fallen asleep in church?
Oh, yes. Absolutely.
Oh, you can answer that quickly?
Absolutely.
Unreal. All right. Have you ever cursed out any of your teachers?
Absolutely not.
How old are you when you had your first kiss?
I plead the fifth.
Okay. Have you ever cheated on a test?
I don't think so, no.
Okay, well, it wasn't that bad, was it?
No. I'm thinking about every prior employer I've had, if they're going to say, did she lie to me during her interview?
I had it in the past.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So that was wonderful. So it wasn't that bad. No. Now we're going to go into cheat sheet. So you're going to give the audience 3 quick tips.
So for small business owners, I think these are the 3 things that you should have. I think you should have the proper employment contracts and employee handbooks in place. Employee handbooks are really a blueprint for the employee to know what the employer's expectations are, and employment contracts, again, really lay what the duties, obligations, and responsibilities of each party are. I hear people ask me a lot about whether verbal agreements are binding. They can be, but you need a written contract.
Easy to prove.
Absolutely. The second thing is make sure that you're properly classifying your employees when you do want to hire your first employee. So a lot of times people think that whether you have to pay overtime is really dependent on the job title of the person. Oh, he or she is a manager, so they don't have to receive overtime, but it's really based on the duties of the person, not the title. So you want to take that into consideration, and you also want to make sure the person you're hiring is an actual employee versus an independent contractor, because that really will determine what withholdings you take, what taxes you have to pay, and if it's found that you've misclassified, you will have to pay penalties. And the third tip that I would give is, as I mentioned earlier, we are in a digital age. Please, please, please make sure you have a social media policy in place.
Yes, as a business, have your
Yes.
social media policy in place. And please do not go to Google and just download a random one. I'm gonna need you to reach out and get an attorney who handles these and just pay them to write the policy for you. These little random ones you see on, these little websites and search
Do-it-yourself
engines, the
websites.
do-it-yourself, they are general, okay? And that means there are holes in it. So just please find an attorney that handles that stuff and do it. Well, thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you.
You gave great information to the audience, and small businesses, you really have no excuse at this point, because now you know. How can people reach you?
People can reach me if they want to learn more information about my business. They can go to my website, which is www.kimberlyglegal.com, or they can call 1-800-366-0573.
Sounds good to me. Thank you for tuning in. And I really appreciate, the questions that you sent in. Please keep them coming. Go to the website at www.mbunder.oath.com. You can submit your questions for office hours, jury duty, plead the fifth. You can watch past shows. I would love it. And just subscribe to all the social mediums that we're on, which I believe is YouTube, Instagram, I believe Periscope, like all of it, Instagram, everything. Just go ahead and subscribe, and I'll see you next week.